So, you're here to find out whether you're left-brained or right-brained. Well, what if I told you you're actually both? Sounds a bit hard to believe, right? Or if I told you that you can be creative while still being logical, still skeptical? Well, let me break it down for you and show you how you're actually both-brained. Hello there, welcome back to my channel. I'm Arij, a psychologist and life coach with a global community of thousands of learners. My mission is simple: to help you grow, change, and become the best version of yourself. And speaking of growth, if you're serious about making real changes, be sure to check out my Patreon. You'll get access to exclusive content, all my paid courses, and personal coaching. Let's transform your life together. Now, today we're tackling one of the biggest myths in pop psychology: the idea that people are either left-brained or right-brained. This myth has been floating around for years and has influenced everything from personality tests to career advice. But why does it matter? Well, if you believe that only one side of your brain is in charge, you might start limiting yourself without even realizing it. You might think, I'm just not creative, or I can't handle logical stuff. But what if the truth is that your brain is way more complex and capable than this myth makes it seem? That's why we're here today, to debunk this myth, and more importantly, to show you how your whole brain works together to make you the amazing, multifaceted person you are. So let me ask you something. Are you right-handed or left-handed? It's a simple question, but think about it for a second. Most of us have been asked this at some point, and it seems to tie into all these ideas about how we think and who we are. Right-handed? People might assume you're more logical or analytical. Left-handed? Oh, you must be super creative, maybe even artsy, right? It's interesting how something as simple as which hand you use can lead people to conclusions about your brain. That's exactly where the whole left brain, right brain myth comes in. The idea is that if you're left-handed, you're supposedly more in tune with your creative side because it's controlled by the right side of your brain. And if you're right-handed, you're supposed to be more logical because your left brain is in charge. But here's the thing. Just like how being right or left-handed doesn't actually dictate your personality, neither does this whole left-brained, right-brained thing. Let's break down why. All right, so let's talk about this myth that's been floating around forever. You've probably heard it before, right? The idea is pretty straightforward. The left side of your brain is where logic, reasoning, and language skills live, while the right side is all about creativity, emotions, and imagination. It's a neat little story that explains why some people are supposedly more logical and others are more creative. And it's not just something you hear in passing. This belief is everywhere. From school to personality tests, it pops up in pop culture all the time. I mean, think about it. How many times have you heard someone say, "Oh, I'm definitely right-brained because I'm not good at math," or "I'm left-brained, that's why I can't draw"? It's like we've all been conditioned to think that one half of our brain defines who we are. But is that really true? Are we really just operating with one side of our brain in charge? I hate to break it to you, but it's not that simple. This myth is way too simplified to represent how our brains actually work. And trust me, the truth is way more interesting. So let's dive into where this whole left brain, right brain thing even started. We're going back to the 1960s, when a neuroscientist named Roger Sperry was conducting some super interesting studies. His research was all about people who had undergone split brain surgery. Now, this wasn't just any surgery. These folks had the connection between the two hemispheres of their brain cut to help with severe epilepsy. Sounds intense, right? During this research, Sperry found that certain functions seemed to favor one side of the brain more than the other. For example, language processing was mostly happening in the left hemisphere for most people. Naturally, this got a lot of attention because it was groundbreaking stuff for the time. But here's where things got twisted. The media, always looking for a catchy headline, grabbed onto this concept and ran wild with it. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't about the complexity of the brain and how interconnected it is. Instead, it became about how the left hemisphere is responsible for logic, reasoning, and language, while the right hemisphere was dubbed the creative, emotional side. It was a neat little package that was easy to digest and, well, it just stuck in people's minds. Before you knew it, the myth was everywhere. Pop culture, schools, even personality tests. But here's what people didn't get. Sperry's research was never saying that only one side of the brain worked at a time, or that people are wired to be either logical or creative. It was just about certain tasks being more dominant in one hemisphere, but that doesn't mean the brain works in isolation. Yet, the world took this and simplified it way too much, which brings us to where we are today, still clearing up the misunderstanding decades later. So let's get straight to it. This whole left-brained versus right-brained thing? Yeah, it's not how your brain works. The truth is, both sides of your brain are involved in almost everything you do. You don't have one side that's logical and the other that's creative. They work together in ways that are way more complex than we once thought. Modern neuroscience shows us that the brain is like a highly connected network. Sure, some tasks lean toward one hemisphere more than the other, but when it comes to anything that matters, solving problems, coming up with creative ideas, making decisions, you're using both sides of your brain. It's not a tug of war between the two. Let's look at an example. When you're solving a math problem, you need logical reasoning, right? But at the same time, you need creativity to approach the problem from different angles, especially if it's a tough one. And if you're drawing or painting, that's not just your right brain throwing colors on a canvas. There's a lot of logic involved in how you plan the composition, balance, and details. Both hemispheres are constantly in communication, working together as a team. And while it's true that some functions are lateralized, meaning they're mostly handled by one side, like language being in the left hemisphere for most people, it doesn't mean the other side is just chilling, doing nothing. Your brain is more like a symphony, where every part plays a role, and all the parts need to be in sync for the music to work. The idea that you're either left-brained or right-brained simply doesn't hold up when you look at the actual science. Now, here's the thing. Just because the left brain, right brain myth isn't scientifically accurate, doesn't mean you can't use the terms in casual conversation. We all do it. It's just important to remember that it's more of a shorthand for how we perceive ourselves than an actual neurological fact. So if you're at a party and someone says, "Oh, I'm totally right-brained, I'm not good with numbers, but I'm super creative," it's fine. No one's going to stop you from using it for fun, and honestly, it's kind of a cultural thing at this point. But here's the deal. Knowing the truth empowers you. You don't have to box yourself into being creative or logical based on this old myth. You can be both. Because, spoiler alert, you are both. Your brain doesn't limit you. In fact, it's designed to help you thrive in all areas, not just one. All right, here's the big takeaway from all of this. You're not left-brained or right-brained. You're whole-brained. There's no part of your brain that's not pulling its weight when it comes to creativity, logic, emotions, or reasoning. You're using all of it, all the time, even if it doesn't feel like it. So next time someone tells you they're right-brained because they like art, or left-brained because they're good at math, you know better. You're a complex human being with a brain that's way more powerful and interconnected than these old-school myths make it out to be. And before I wrap up, if you're ready to dive deeper into topics like these, or want to start making real changes in your life, check out my Patreon. There I share exclusive content, courses, and coaching that will help you take the next step in your personal growth journey. Thanks for spending time with me today, and I'll see you in the next episode.